Welcome to Review Mean, the channel where we go an extra mile to simplify your movie decisions. Today, we'll be analysing Wicked for Good, the sequel to the 2024 movie Wicked, starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. At the time of this video, these were the critics that had reviewed the movie. As I understand it, for 3C Films, this movie doesn't just stumble at the ending. It detonates in a spectacular neon green mushroom cloud of confusion. He's desperately combing the internet for answers like a conspiracy theorist, only to find nothing that justifies the most baffling, rushed, narratively incoherent final act he's ever seen in a big-budget musical. What starts as a promising, engaging first hour transforms into a cinematic train, sliding off a cliff the moment Dorothy shows up. Except Dorothy doesn't even show up. She's a literal ghost, haunting the plot while the movie sprints through all the juicy Wizard of Oz connections. Songs freeze the story in place, like someone hitting a musical pause button at the worst possible time. We've seen that before, haven't we?
There's a way.
Character arcs evaporate, the world building collapses, and it just doesn't end well.
'Cause Wicked for Good pissed me off.
To him, Wicked for Good isn't just disappointing, it's infuriatingly incomplete, aggressively messy, and full of unanswered questions. His scores average 2.6. For Grace, Wicked for Good isn't just a movie, it's an emotional tragedy wrapped in sparkles, heartbreak, and existential despair, the kind that makes you dress up for the occasion, only to realize you're about to sub your eyeliner off. She sees the film as a devastating mirror held up to womanhood, showing all the pain, loss, and crushed fantasies beneath the bright, glittering surface of the first film's girl power joy. Every scene between Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande hits her like a Shakespearean betrayal, a feminist gut punch that leaves her staring into the cinematic abyss, asking philosophical questions about lies, truth, and whether society's illusions matter more than reality itself.
You ever wanted to know what it's all about? Why we're here, on this planet? Nope.
This sequel isn't a fun trip back to Oz. It's an emotional reckoning so brutal she questions whether she can even handle a second viewing, despite being utterly fascinated by its raw honesty. She sees the film as a cultural event destined for theme parks, merchandise empires, and mythic pop culture status.
They're gonna be up there with Marvel and Star Wars and DC and Harry Potter.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
She believes audiences will walk out not dancing or singing, but quietly devastated, wondering how a story about witches could hit so painfully close to real life. We'll convert her opinion to a 4 out of 5. Austin Burke treats Wicked for Good like a magnificent building collapsing in slow motion. Beautiful, tragic, and absolutely overwhelming. For him, the Elphaba-Glinda relationship isn't just the heart of the movie. It's the nuclear core powering the entire franchise, radiating so much chemistry you could run a small country on it. But even as he praises Ariana Grande's shockingly restrained, Oscar-level performance, he mourns the loss of the comedic sparkle that once defined Glinda, a missing limb the film never fully recovers from. The movie tries juggling themes, characters, Wizard of Oz connections, and emotional payoffs all at once, and Austin watches in horror as the storytelling buckles under the weight of it all. Side characters get tossed aside, pacing gets mangled, songs fail to detonate the way they should. And compared to Part 1, his wholly perfect standard, this sequel feels bigger but messier, deeper but wobblier, grand but not quite victorious. Still, he admits the emotional journey of the leads is spectacular, breathtaking even, but ultimately insists the original stands towering and undefeated, a green sparkling titan this sequel can only admire from the shadows. He gives a 75% score, which is 3.75 on our scale. Adam is floored by Ariana Grande's performance. Her Glinda doesn't just shine, She goes supernova, detonating emotional moments so powerful, Adam openly admits to leaking manly tears, stunned that a musical could reduce him to a sniffling wreck. But then he whips around and unleashes hellfire on the movie's biggest sin, assuming anyone younger than 30 has seen The Wizard of Oz. To him, the film tosses Dorothy into the story like an unmarked grenade. No explanation, no context, no mercy for clueless audience members suddenly wondering why a random girl with a dog is warping the plot. He praises the improved visuals, but tears into the script for abusing Elphaba's powers like a malfunctioning light switch, where she has the power to blow guards across the room 1 minute and then forgets her magic exists the next. He sees the pacing as a runaway broomstick, the story as cramped and undercooked, and the world as begging, screaming for more time to breathe. To Adam, the film is a strong, heartfelt finale that almost achieves greatness, but ultimately settles for being wicked for good, instead of wicked for legendary. A conclusion he enjoys but can't help wishing had cast a bigger, bolder spell, a 3.5 on our scale. Dan Murrell notices that the exact same problems that enraged him in Act 2 of the Broadway musical have followed him onto the big screen. To him, this movie isn't just messy, it's a full-blown narrative whiplash machine. A herky-jerky chaos engine that hurls characters through massive plot twists so awkwardly. The filmmakers didn't take the opportunity to fix the broken bones of Act 2, but instead slapped more weight onto the same cracked foundation, stretching the runtime even longer and amplifying every flaw to thunderous proportions. And yet, he can't deny that Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are so breathtaking, so magnetic, so out-of-this-world flawless that they almost rescue the entire production by sheer force of talent, practically holding the movie together with vocal superglue. The filmmaking sparkles, the performances soar, but the storytelling leaves him cold, frustrated, and spiritually exhausted. In the end, he can only rank it in the upper limits of fine. A verdict delivered with the weary sigh of a man who desperately wanted more from a movie so promising. He suggests that you lower your anticipations, because if you brace yourself for chaos, you might leave the theatre pleasantly stunned instead of emotionally bruised. That's a 3 out of 5. For Jeremy Jahns, Elphaba isn't just misunderstood, she's the poster child of a brutal propaganda machine. She's been rebranded so aggressively that even speaking her name is treated like a felony, and it's interesting how scarily realistic that is. Meanwhile, poor Glinda is trapped between loyalty to her best friend and the intoxicating high of being adored by the public, basically becoming the wizarding world's first influencer sellout. Their friendship is the emotional backbone that should hold everything together. But Jeremy fumes that the movie cheapens a moment of raw grief by turning it into a slap fight straight out of a Real Housewives meltdown.
You have no idea what she's done to me! You have no idea what she has done to you!
And then, halfway through, the film suddenly sprints like it handed its script to Usain Bolt.
It feels like it passed the baton to Usain Bolt, who just did a speed run to the end.
Speed running through Wizard of Oz crossovers so quickly, Jeremy starts begging for more runtime, something he once believed was impossible for him to say as a human being. The production's gorgeous, but the story is messy. In the end, Jeremy declares it a magical mess. Not a disaster, but a wildly disappointing downgrade from the first film. We'll score this a 2 out of 5, just like all the other reviewers, to Sean Chandler, Cynthia Erivo, and Ariana Grande. Don't just act. They unleash multi-layered emotional shockwaves while singing, dancing, and surviving inside production sets. But Sean's soul cracks in half when the narrative starts merging with the Wizard of Oz. Because instead of elegantly interlocking puzzle pieces, it feels like the filmmakers are smashing them together with a sledgehammer, forcing characters to make wildly unnatural choices just to move the plot along. Even worse, the movie plays coy with a big twist so obvious Sean thinks anyone who misses it should probably undergo a wellness check. The filmmaking, the performances, the music, all magnificent. But the story itself is a clunky, messy, emotionally dreary labyrinth. that stumbles toward a finale that barely registers. His score equates to 3.5 out of 5. John Campea spends the first half of Wicked for Good sitting in silent agony and can barely hide his disappointment. To him, the opening stretch feels soulless and mechanical. The charm, the spark, the emotional electricity of the first film is gone, extinct, vaporized. But then, halfway through, the movie kickstarts back to life. The heart returns, the soul returns. The story remembers it has something to say, and John feels the film transform right before his eyes into something genuinely heartfelt and powerful. He's thrilled that Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are so spectacular, he's ready to start drafting their Oscar campaign posters himself. And while he's still annoyed that the film's first half was a barren wasteland of empty motion, he walks out feeling genuinely uplifted by the final stretch. For Campea, Wicked for Good is the cinematic equivalent of a disastrous first date that turns shockingly magical halfway through, a bumpy, uneven journey that ultimately wins him back in the end. We'll give a score of 3.5. Now let's round up the numbers and convert to percentage. The review mean score is 65% compared to 69% on the tomatometer. Seems most critics agree on this one. And perhaps I'll go see it, but at a matinee price. There you have it, folks. But what about you? Did our score match your vibe? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if this helped you make a more informed decision, or gave you one less thing to Google today, give a big thank you to the amazing reviewers we featured by subscribing to them, support their work, and of course, smash that subscribe button for Review Mean. Like, comment, share, and I'll catch you in the next video.